Hey everybody, so today I wanted to make a video going over all of the most recent speedrun strategies for the upcoming Salvation's Edge speedrun tournament. So if you're a new team wondering what are the most cutting edge strats right now that are up to date for at least today, up to my knowledge, so July 14, 2024, here they are. Obviously strats may develop on the way to the tourney, but I think most encounters have been mostly figured out by now. So, Excluded wanted me to make this video so that everybody's kind of mostly aware of what's going on while they practice in the coming days coming up to the tournament. So let's start with entrance. So entrance, going from where you spawn in to first encounter, there's a bunch of different routes people have made to get there. As long as your whole team is there by like around a minute, like under a minute, it should be pretty much fine, right? The biggest thing here is you want to play for consistency, right? So what most teams are doing right now is you have 3 people go inbounds and you have 3 people go out of bounds. So obviously the out of bounds route, I'm talking about like right here, right? You can kind of just go underneath this area and there's like an oob hole here. So you have 3 people go this way and you have 3 people like launch themselves up and go the regular inbounds route. And that way there's not too much clutter, right? So that's entrance. I don't think there's much to say there. After that, someone swords the flag into the encounter. And then everyone rallies, and then you have a 1-2 skipper, and there's a 1-2 route that's been posted in Speedrun panel as well by AshX, I believe. So you have a 1-2 skipper, and they die without setting their spawn. They die without having their feet touch the ground in the encounter. Okay, that's really, really important because after the encounter starts, right, once the resonance is spawned, they're going to die and someone's going to pick that up. They're going to start the encounter. And then once they res themselves, because they haven't set their spawn in the encounter, it'll spawn them outside. So like at the end of the jumping puzzle in front of the door, it'll spawn them there. And then they can go leave on 1-2 skip, right? Now, the important thing with 1-2 skip is obviously you need to die after you go to the other load zone. So after you hit dissipation, you have to die. And then you have like a couple minutes basically to get to second encounter, at which point you pull the entire fire team when first encounter is done. And then you go and do 2-3 skip. So the 1-2 skipper does 2-3 skip. Otherwise, if someone else tried to do 2-3 skip, they would have to sit through the 11 seconds of joining allies. So that would make their skip a lot slower. So if you have a 1-2, they should be doing the 2-3, right? There's a bunch of different variations of this strategy. If you want to go for something easier, more consistent, you can wipe pull, right? If you wipe pull, then you can have different people do 2-3 skip, etc., etc. So there's a bunch of different stuff you can do. I'm just going to give you the fastest version of the strategies that are currently available. You can tweak these to, however you want. Okay, so what about the remaining 5 people who are doing first encounter? Now, first encounter obviously splits you into kind of 2 teams, right? And you have 5 people on your team, so it's kind of awkward, right? You have 3 people and then you have 2 people. Like, how are you going to divvy up the work, right? So important thing to know about first encounter. So whenever we talk about encounters, I want you guys to think about encounters as a series of gates, as a series of objectives, right? So at any given moment in the raid, what is stopping you from progressing? And once you finish that objective, what comes next, right? So in first encounter, obviously, your end goal is to close both the conductors, right? There's 2 conductors. You want to close both of them. And once you close both of them, you want to like kill the stuff in mid, you want to dunk in the box, and then you go to the next round, right? So how do you close both conductors? Well, in order to close the second conductor, you need to open it up with that plate, right? And so you need to kill second tormentor, right? And in order to start that whole cycle, you need to kill first tormentor, right? So first tormentor is our first like major objective. Let's call it that, right? First tormentor. And so in order to kill first tormentor, what do you need to kill? Well, you need to kill first overload. And when I say first overload, I mean the overload on the side that gets first overload. And I'll explain what that means in a second. And so how do you get into the room with first overload? Well, you actually need to kill the angelic on the opposite side. So we're going to call it second overload side, angelic. Right, and I hope you guys know what this means, right? Because one side is going to have the overload first, and then the other side is going to have the overload next, right? So the side that gets the overload next, so the second side overload, they need to kill an angelic. And in order to spawn that angelic, you need to kill a minotaur on the first overload side, right? Now, if you don't get what this means, I'll draw this out in a second. But for those of you who know what this means, you're probably aware of where I'm going with this. Right, and then in order to spawn the first minotaur, you need to kill the first side ads, first room ads. So what does all of this mean? Basically, what this means is take a look at this map, right? I've drawn first encounter. This is the flag. This is the flag room, right? And then someone swords the flag in, someone dies, they go do like 1-2, and then everyone else is like in the center room, right? So this is a first encounter that actually happened, right? I recorded this first encounter and I wrote down all the rooms that opened and where everything spawned, okay? So just as an example, right? These were the first 2 rooms that opened. So red 1, green 1, and then obviously they move out in opposite directions, right? So normally in first encounter, right, you have to interact with 6 rooms at a time, right? So in this case, it would be what, like these 6 rooms, right? Now, the cool thing that people discovered about this encounter is that you don't actually need to interact with a third room and the second room whatsoever on the side that gets second overload, right? And so the cool thing about that is that you can save your ammo, you can save your time, if you can just figure out what side has the overload first without actually going to the third room. And the way you do that is by simply looking at the ads in first room. So in first room, if you have scions, which this room would have scions, if you have the orange bar scions, then your side is going to have overloads. If you have the orange bar hobgoblins, the snipers, then your side is going to have no overload. It's going to have overload second. Okay, so what you do is you have your team split up into, 2 pairs of 2. And the pair that finds the scions calls out scions, or you can do hobgoblins. I think hobgoblins are actually easier to call, but we've started calling scions, and that's kind of what we're used to. So someone's going to call scions or hobgoblins, and then based on that, you have one person, they go to the second room. If their side has scions, they're going to kill the minotaur that spawns in this room. And if you want this minotaur to spawn, you'll notice that nothing will spawn in the second room until you kill a majority of the red bars in first room. So what does the other person do? They go in here and they kill the red bars. So let's say add, right? Ads. So they're going to go ahead and kill all of the red bars, right? Now the orange bars in this room don't actually matter, like the scions don't actually matter, but you want to kill a majority of the red bars, whether it's goblins, whether it's harpies, you want to kill a majority of them, okay? And then in the next room, as soon as those are killed, this guy's immediately heading there. So the minotaur should spawn as he gets there, and you're going to kill the minotaur. And now normally in this room, you would also kill an angelic, but remember, angelics unlock the door between the second and third room of the opposing side. And remember what we said, right? There is nothing in these rooms that actually matters for this encounter. And so as a result, you can skip that, save your time. This guy's going to go right up against this wall, pre-pop his Goldie, and then go into the next room where there will be an overload waiting for him. He's going to one-shot the overload by radiant bodying it, and then the tormentor will spawn, just like that. So let me actually revise this diagram a little bit because it needs a little bit of modification. And that is to say, on the other side, so the way angelic spawning works is that it will spawn an angelic in the furthest room that a player has been detected on that side. So for example, on this side, if nobody ever progresses past this room, the angelic that normally spawns in second room will actually spawn in first room. Okay, so that means that these 2 players that go into this room don't even have to do anything. They just sit here. They literally just sit here holding hands with like a, still hunt or Izzy. And the second the angelic spawns, they just kill it. And then that's that. Okay. So like I was saying earlier, to modify my diagram, it should go minotaur spawns this angelic, and then the angelic spawns that overload and opens this door. So hopefully that makes sense. First round is pretty straightforward. Now, what does the 5th player do, right? Because obviously you have 1 player go here, 1 player go here, 2 players spawn camp this. What is this mid guy doing? To be honest with you, I do the mid roll, and there's not really anything that you do during like the first round, because even this is already overkill, and like there's no way to predict whether these players will have these ads first, so you can't pre their room. So in reality, you can kind of just sit there. What I do is I go into the straight rooms, so I go top, bottom, left, or right, whatever's open, and then I go in there, and then I just try to help with some ad clear. And maybe I can help kill the angelic, but that's literally it. That's all I do, right? So pretty straightforward there, right? Nothing too complicated for first round. Now, second round is where things get a little bit more complicated, but not that much more complicated. And that's where the 5th player actually has to do like a semi-important job, right? So before second round actually starts, you have, what do you have, right? So let's think about our players. You have the guy that just came from killing a minotaur and an overload. You have a guy that basically just killed red bars, and then you have 2 people that are spawn camping an angelic. So in reality, by the time the tormentor spawns, this person can already be in mid, these 2 people can also already be in mid, and you already have a guy in mid, the mid guy that was like useless, right? So you have 4 people in mid to kill 1 tormentor. So as a result, it's really, really easy to kill this tormentor. What we do, what our strat does, and I think pretty much all teams are using this strat at this point. I made this routing after like a lot of thinking about what roles should do what, and I think it's like a pretty good strat. So what our team does is the mid player is the one that Nighthawks the tormentor, the first tormentor, and someone Izzy's a shoulder. So if you're not using Izzy in this encounter, you absolutely should be. The only people that are not really going to be using Izzy in this encounter are the people that kill overloads, and that's because Still Hunt is really good for killing the overloads compared to Izzy, because you can just kind of radiant body them, whereas Izzy, you need to hit a crit. If you hit a body, it's like really bad. So watch this here. my teammates are just going to Izzy the shoulder. And the nice thing about Izzy, the reason why it's so important here, is it breaks both shoulders instantly and immediately exposes his crit state, right? So here I can just radiant body the Tormentor without even like trying to aim. And I just wait a little bit to prevent like a no-reg, and then I just move on. And then you'll see that I'm scanning rooms as the mid player, and I'll explain this in a second. But so just know that that's how the first Tormentor is killed, and we'll explain the strat for second Tormentor now. Okay, so second cycle is a little bit different, right? Remember how I said that in first cycle, right, but for first Tormentor to spawn, you don't really need to interact with 2 out of the 6 rooms that are like gonna open eventually, right? Well, second cycle is not really the case, because there is a possibility that you need to open a room for the other side to actually do their plate mechanics. And so because of that, you do need to send players deeper on the side that doesn't get the overload in order for it to work properly. Both sides kind of need to play ball with each other, right? You need to open all 6 rooms. So in this instance, what I have here is 4, 5, 6. These are the green rooms that open on the next cycle, and then 4, 5, 6. These are the red rooms that open on the next cycle. Okay, so how do you actually divvy up your players? So at the end of the first cycle, when the first Tormentor spawns, you have 4 people in mid, and you have 1 guy in the room with the first overload. So you have 1 guy here. So what we do is this guy actually stays here, because first of all, it's actually kind of annoying for him to like get back to mid, because the door like instantly closes if the Tormentor kills fast. So this guy's basically just chilling in this room, right? And the reason why that's fine is because the first overload side, their job is to start plate mechanics as soon as possible, right? And I'll explain why later. But it's really, really important that they start plate mechanics as soon as possible. Now, maybe you're wondering, like, why would they need to rush plate mechanics if you're gated to this pair of plate conductor anyway? And that's because plate mechanics are really important, because you can instantly close this conductor, because when you start plate mechanics and start bouncing and spawning resonance, it spawns resonance in mid too. And so a player in mid can just grab that resonance, you can step on the plate and instantly close this conductor. Okay, so that's a lot of time save. So ignoring that, basically this player being trapped here is fine, because he's either going to be in the plate room or he's going to be in the conductor room, right? It's going to be one of them. And so him being in there early is like totally fine, right? So you have 4 players in here, and you want to split them into 2 teams of 2 to help do ad clear. Obviously one person's trapped in here, so the red side's going to need someone to help, and that's where the mid player comes in, right? So in this strategy, it's really, really easy. You have this person, so the other player who is this guy's partner, right? They immediately go to second room, and then they kill the Minotaur, and then they kill the Angelic. Okay, they kill Minotaur, and then they kill the Angelic. In whatever order they spawn. It's usually Minotaur, then Angelic, right? And then this person, right, they go in here. So the mid player, my role, they go in here, and they just kill the red bars. They kill the red bars, they come back to mid, and then they kill middle Angelic if it spawns, right? Which is kind of RNG. Obviously, middle Angelic, people say it spawns if there's someone trapped, but in our strategy, there's always someone trapped, right? So, you know, middle Angelic just spawns sometimes. You kill it if you need to. Kill the Supplicants because they're annoying. And the Tormentor, when the first Tormentor dies, it spawns a tree in mid, like a tree. So you want to get rid of that too. Just run through it or shoot it if you're the middle role, because it can block Izzy shots on the second Tormentor. So just get rid of that. And this guy is just floating in mid and getting ready for the resonance to spawn, like I mentioned earlier. And then I'm going to close the conductor, the final conductor, right? So that's what's happening on the red side. Pretty simple. And this guy, once they kill the Minotaur and Angelic, right? If this guy has plate, which in this case he does, as soon as this person like starts to enter this room, they're going to call send so that they can start sending right away. You're going to do some bounces, and then this guy's going to instantly close. This guy right here, the plate guy on the red side, so on the first overload side, they're responsible for bringing resonance to mid. They're the only person in the entire encounter for every cycle that actually dunks in the box in middle. Because think about it, no one else has time, right? This guy has to use his resonance to close the conductor, right? And on this side, no resonance even spawns because they step on the plate and then the conductor is closed immediately on the same cycle, right? So really, you're only ever picking up like 3 resonance, right? You have this guy who dunks mid, you have this guy who closes the conductor, and then you have this guy, and then you have this guy who, what is it? You have this guy who closes this conductor. Sorry, my brain is fried right now. Okay, so that is basically what's going on the red side. What's going on the green side? So on the green side, what's happening is pretty simple. You have one person immediately go to second room, and you might notice here that's a little bit different, right? In the first cycle, we had one person go to second room, they would kill a Minotaur, and then they would instantly go and kill the Overload in third room, right? However, because you need to also kill an Angelic in second room to help the other guys out, you can't really do that here, right? Having one person bear the burden of killing Minotaur and Angelic and Overload is just way too much, right? So what you do instead is you do 1, 3, and you do 2. So what that means is one person is going to kill the red bars in the first room, and then they're going to skip straight to third room, And in third room, they're going to kill the overload, right? And then they're basically going to do plate mechanics with the conductor person. They're going to get ready to send. When this person is ready, they're going to call send, and then they're going to step on, right? And then the other person, all they need to do is go straight to second room, and then they're going to kill a Minotaur and an Angelic, right? Now, the big roadblock here for teams that are really trying to speed up this encounter, get really, really good times, is on second cycle, right, for second Tormentor, there are Angelics that can backspawn in the first rooms, in the second rooms, and even in the third rooms, just randomly, right? Or it's just whenever a Minotaur dies, right? And those Angelics, if you don't catch them, right, they can spawn at unexpected moments, can really slow down the encounter. So just make sure that you're on the lookout for Angelics during second Tormentor cycle. You can have your mid player kind of watch one of the back rooms, although if your team is really fast, they kind of won't have time to do this, because they have to kill middle Angelic and all that stuff too, right? So that's basically how that works. And then the final thing, the final nail in the coffin, the last thing that we do every round is the player that kills Minotaur and Angelic on the second overload side, they go mid, right? They go mid. And then they also solo kill the second Tormentor, right? So what all it takes to solo kill a second Tormentor is you just Izzy the shoulder solo. Really, really easy. You can pre-aim where the shoulder is going to be. It's going to be there every single time in first encounter. They don't turn at all. And then you just make sure you have Radiant. So you Radiant dodge maybe before this, and then you pop your Goldie, and then just bang anywhere on the body, in the chest, whatever, and he's going to die instantly, right? So let me go ahead and show you what a sample round looks like, and then we'll get on with our way. All right, we'll get on our way to second encounter. So this is an example of a phenomenal first round. Okay, so this is a 109 resin. Resin being the resin shifts into place that marks the end of every single round cycle. Okay, so right here we have someone dunk, right? And so the middle roll, that's me, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and sword into a room. I told you guys I always sword into the straight rooms. So obviously the other side has hobgoblins, or sorry, the other side has scions. I'm looking at a hobgoblin, so I got confused. So our side is just gonna spawn camp the Angelic, like I mentioned, right? We're not gonna move forward at all. So me, Stony, Mars, we're just gonna sit here. Stony takes care of the Angelic for me. Again, my role just kind of doesn't really do anything during this part, except for kill this Tormentor. So my teammate's gonna Izzy it, boom, I body it. And so watch this, right? Now this is something important for the mid player to be fast. Obviously the green players, they know where they're going, right? They're going into the door that's furthest away from the trapped player. So you have a trapped player here, right? And so the goal of the people on the first overload team, so me and Warda, is to locate the door that opens closest to the trapped player. And so there are 4 possible doors that can open to the trapped player. 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? Obviously it can't be this room, but those are the 4 possible rooms. And so me and Warda, what we're doing is we are looking on either side of the trap player, right? Technically you can eliminate some of these spores, but you know, we're looking on either side of the trap player at these 4 doors, and we're looking at which one opens, right? So if it's these 2 that open, we go into this one because that's closest to the trap player. If it's these 2 that open, we go into this one. And then obviously if it's these 2 that open, we go into this one, etc., right? The other team has a pretty easy job of finding where to go. So if you're the mid player, what you should do is you should look on either side of Oko, and you'll see, oh, that door open, but that door isn't open, which means I know I need to go into this door. And so I just killed the red bars in this room like we talked about. Ward is going to go ahead to the next room. He's going to go ahead and kill the Minotaur and Angelic. Like I mentioned here, I have to kill this guy, right? I'm not going to talk about the immune. I don't even know how I did immune. I had Radiant. But yeah, so kill that guy. I pick up Resonance. I switch to a Trace Rifle here so that I can shoot the conductor quickly while I'm moving. And another thing here for the mid player, this is really, really important to identify the room that you need to go into, right? You're obviously not going to go into the side that has first overload. So you look at your teammates that are second overload teammates. So in this case, it's going to be Stony and Mars. And I'm going to go ahead and look at them, right? And I notice here that it looks like Mars is waiting in the door between top right and right, or whatever you want to call these rooms, right? So Mars is going to jump in here. She's going to kill the champ. And obviously the players, they're moving in this direction, right? They're moving, what is that, clockwise. They're moving clockwise, right? So if they're moving clockwise, then this would be their room 3. And as you guys know, or maybe you don't know, but in the room that spawns the overload, which is room 3, there's always a plate. And whatever room would be room 4 is where the conductor is, right? So by inference, I can see Stony has come out of here, which is room 2. Mars is going into room 3, and therefore I must go to room 4. And the other way that you can tell that this is happening is that room 2 is always open from the middle, and room 4 is always closed from the middle. So if you ever need help figuring out what room to go into, figure out where the person killing the overload is, look on either side of them, and whatever door is closed is the one that you need to go into. Okay? So that's how I know this. I pick up my Resonance. And then, you know, Threshold Sentinel arrives. Sony's going to go ahead and one bang that guy, and I'm going to just go in here. I'm going to shoot my conductor. I'm going to get on. And so boom, there you go. That's like a 54 close, which is pretty good. Or a 54, back into middle. It's pretty good. We all make special finishers here, right? So this is the last thing I'm going to talk about in this encounter. Or actually second last thing. We all make special finishers, maybe third last thing. We all make special finishers here because ammo is a little bit, you're not going to get a flag going into second encounter. You can't perm a second, right? It deletes the flag unless there's some sort of desync involved. So yeah, we're all just going to make special finishers here. Everyone kind of needs to hit their goldies this encounter to get Nighthawk energy refund as well as to make orbs for everyone. So you're just chaining goldies here so that, especially because people want goldies for second encounter, right? So yeah, that's one round. Now, the only thing different on third round is that obviously, I'm sure you've heard that people have a Titan on second encounter, but you notice we're on 5 hunters here for entrance, right? Or 6 hunters. And so one person has to rejoin on Titan. That would be my role. My role rejoins on Titan. And I'll show you exactly when that happens. So we got like a 346 first yesterday, right? So literally what I do is, let me try and see here. Yeah, so this is first Tormentor on third round, right? I get my Radiant. I pop my Goldie. I'm waiting. Champ is dead. Hit the crit. I body him. And then, okay, so you have a couple choices here. If your team is a really fast third round, you should just leave after killing first Tormentor, right? However, in most cases, it makes more sense to help your team a little bit before leaving. So maybe help kill mid Angelic and help kill some supplicants before you leave. That way your team has a lot less difficult of a job on third round. And the reason for that is because on third round, the guy that solo kills second Tormentor also takes on your job as the mid role. So they also have to pick up Resonance, and they also have to go and close the last Conductor. So they have to take on a lot of responsibility. And on top of that, normally your role is killing middle Angelic and the Supplicants, right? And so they're basically taking on 2 roles on third round. And they have to do so while being shot by a middle Angelic and Supplicants, right? So this can be really, really annoying for them. So it can help a lot if you can get rid of the Tormentor, or not the Tormentor, you can get rid of the Tormentor and the middle Angelic and the Supplicants if you can before you leave. And normally, even if your team has a really, really cracked first encounter end, you'll make it back in time to spawn in next to flag, and then your skipper will wait like a couple seconds for you to start. Okay, and you don't even need the flag, so I guess you can call start on dip, but no, it doesn't really do anything because second encounter is gated to the Titan. Okay, so that's basically it for first encounter. The last thing I will do for you, the favor I will do for you is I'll show you screenshots of the roles. Okay, so this is the Stony Warda role. So this is the room 2 role, let's call it. So second room role on second cycle. So non-champion role. Let's call it the non-champ role, right? And this is what they do on first round, right? So if they have first overload. So if you have first overload, all you need to do is kill the ads in first room, go back to mid, maybe help with the Tormentor. Dude, one thing I totally forgot is the guy that kills, I believe, first overload? Is it first overload? No, I think it's the guy that kills second overload. Yeah, the guy that kills second overload, I believe, is responsible for goldieing the mid subjugator, if I'm not mistaken. Or I might be trolling. No, I think it's the guy that's room 2 on the side that didn't get the second overload. Yeah. So it's first overload second. Yeah. It's first overload second room guy. So if you're the Stony Warda role and you got first overload, then you're responsible for goldieing mid subjugator. It's like a radiant body and he dies instantly. So super easy stuff, but something I forgot to mention, right? So you're just organizing goldies here so that everyone does like 1 per cycle max, right? And then everyone gets their goldie for next cycle. Okay, so that's what's going on there. In terms of these guys, what's going on with them? So again, Stony Warda role, if you have first overload, kill ads in the first room, come mid, maybe help with the Tormentor, and then basically just go to room 2, right? Stony Warda role, right? The room 2 rolls, they always go room 2 second cycle no matter what, and they kill Angelic Overload. He participates in plate mechanics if he's first overload side, like you can see here. He picks up Resonance because he's Conductor, and then he closes the Conductor. If he's plate, then he obviously picks up Resonance, and then he dunks it mid. And then he kills the Subjugator. Yeah, which is why I have it pointing to S. If Stony Warda role, aka non-champ role, aka non-mid role as well, has second overload, then he goes into first room, he kills the Angelic with his teammate, goes mid, maybe helps kill the Tormentor, and then he immediately, again, goes to room 2, kills Minotaur and Angelic, and then goes mid and solo kills second Tormentor. Okay? Mars Oko rule, so champ killer rule. If you have first overload, you go to second room, you just kill the Minotaur with like a rocket sidearm, you go and you pre-pop your Goldie by the door going into the overload, and then you just kill the overload, you stay in there, you do plate mechanics, and then you come out. Obviously, if you are the Conductor player, then you pick up the Resonance and you dunk it into the Conductor. If you're the plate player, you bring Resonance to mid, right? And then obviously for second overload cycle, you just help kill first Angelic, and then you go to mid, maybe help kill the tormentor, and then you kill ads in first room, you skip to third room, you kill the overload, you send on the plate whenever the person in mid says they're ready, and then they close the conductor. And then middle roll, we kind of just went over a POV of it, so hopefully you guys don't really need any help with that. So yeah, that's it for first encounter. First encounter, I know that was probably like a long time. I don't know how much I've spent in this recording, but I know first encounter is pretty complicated. It is probably the most complicated routing encounter in this entire raid. I would say the encounter that probably needs the most practice in this entire raid. I think honestly, like from front to, I think most people agree with me on this, but like I think from front to back, the encounter difficulty goes first, second, third, fourth, fifth. I think in that order. I mean, you could argue that these two probably need to be switched. And maybe these two, but you know, that's what I think. That's what I think at least. Okay, so that's first encounter. Unfortunately, I don't have a sexy map for second encounter, but you know, we can draw like a little one here because second encounter routing is obviously way more simple, right? So let's go ahead and draw a little map. So left, middle, right. Okay, so let's go over gates, right? I talked about previously how we should think about encounters as a series of objectives, a series of gates, right? So what gates a second encounter? Good question. So second encounter, you're literally just gated by all three conductors closing, right? Three conductors closing. So how do you get three conductors to close as quickly as possible? Well, you need to send as quickly as possible, right? So you want to do plates as quickly as possible. So get on the plates as quickly as possible. How do you activate the plates? Well, you need the ultras to be dead. So the three ultras need to be dead. And on top of that, right, by the time you close this conductor, you need to have favor done, unless you want to fucking RNG it, right? Go for the 1 and 2 on all three sides. So you need to also have, you know, as a secondary, you need to have favor done by the time this is done, right? And so this combined with one important fact will drive the rest of the encounter. Okay. And funnily enough, right? How do you get the ultras to spawn? Well, you need all three ad sets to be dead, right? Or you need the ad sets on each side to spawn each ultra, right? So funnily enough, this also is related to this, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So this encounter kind of has two tracks that are going on to complete the encounter and get to damage, right? So obviously, hopefully, when you guys get pulled to second encounter, most people have their Goldie or are on their way to getting their Goldie. Everybody has enough still hunt ammo. Some people are not on eager edge in first encounter. Oh, I should have said, the people that are on the room 2 rolls, they are on eager edge, right? The people that are overload killers are not on eager edge. And my role, obviously the 5th guy, is on eager edge because, you know, what else would I be on? I'm leaving the fire team, right? So it doesn't really matter what I'm on. So that's just something important to note. If you guys were not aware, that's kind of the strat right now. You use an eager whirlwind other half, and then you use that for damage in second encounter. Okay, so that aside, let's go over second encounter. How does it work? So the important thing about second encounter is that there are 2 people that can actually interact with the encounter in the first 11 seconds. And the reason for that is because if you guys did not know, when you get pulled to second encounter, joining allies lasts 11 seconds. So joining allies lasts around 11 seconds. And that means for the first 11 seconds, you are 2-manning the encounter. Now, one of those 2 players is your skipper. And the way that this encounter works, the way skip timing works, is that this encounter should end up being around a 1-3x to a 1-4x, right? So somewhere in that territory. And skip, if it's really good, is a sub 2 or around a 2 flat. Okay, and so how do you reconcile this? Well, you have to realize that skip just does not have time to help with anything in the encounter. They just don't have time to help with anything in the encounter, right? If you're lucky, you know, if your skip is good and the encounter is also really good, it'll be around the same time that they both kind of end up where they need to be, right? Because there's also a rejoin here involved. So skip just does not have time to help with anything in the encounter. And even if they did help with anything in the encounter, it wouldn't speed things up that much. And I'll explain why in a second. Okay, so basically that means that the person rejoining on Titan is the only person that can do anything in the encounter, like during the encounter, like during the first 11 seconds. And so how does the Titan even get here, right? So there's 2 possibilities. If the Titan rejoins and they merge roster by the time the encounter is already over, they will spawn by the flag next to the skipper, right? So the Titan will spawn right here. Otherwise, they will spawn by the elevator in dissipation, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, the red elevator, right? When you first hit second encounter load zone, you see dissipation in the bottom left of your screen, and there's going to be like a red elevator, right? You're going to spawn right there. And so you need to wait for the encounter to end, wait like a second after the objective updates, and then you're going to die. And then your skipper will start the encounter, and that will warp your ghost here, and you'll be able to respawn and then, you know, go wherever you need to go. Okay, so that's the 2 ways that the Titan gets into second encounter. All right, and that's also why I said that like the Titan rejoining and like helping with mid ads a little bit and then rejoining a bit later is not a big deal because you'll spawn by the flag, and that's like a little bit faster than death warping anyway. So it evens out. It evens out, right? Okay, and regardless, let's move on. So out of these 3 sides, which side is the most annoying to close? Is it mid? No, because you fucking spawn there, so obviously not. Is it right? No. Right is like really short distance between plate and conductor. It's fairly simple. The ad clear is like really easy. So that leaves us with left, right? If you ask anybody who's done solo this encounter, obviously left side is pretty hell because there's such a huge elevation gap between the plate and the conductor. The ads are fairly spread out. There's like gaping holes in the map that you can fall into if you're trying to go underneath. The mini boss kind of is annoying. It's a wizard, right? And it's generally like a very exposed position, right? So left side can be quite annoying. So what does the Titan do? The Titan immediately goes left and starts clearing ads on left, right? And the reason for that is this. This favor is actually quite important that it's done on time. And so the Titan needs to kill all of the ads on this side and on this side. And as soon as that's done, they're also going to kill the Ultra on whatever side it spawns. And the reason for that is because people have discovered that as soon as you kill all of the ads on one side, right? So both ad spawns, both Scions and both Scion groups, and as well as the Knights, it'll spawn the Ultras, and then it will also call you to battle in, I think, about 9 to 10 seconds after you finish your ad clear on one side. So I'm not talking about the Ultras. I'm not talking about the Ultras. I'm just talking about the red bars and the Knights, the initial spawns. Once you kill those, the Ultra will spawn, right? So as soon as the Ultra spawns, around 9 or 10 seconds after that, you'll get called to battle. And then that's what your favor is gated to. And because sending is so fast on all three sides, you actually kind of get gated to favor a little bit because you're also 5-manning this encounter. And because you're 5-manning this encounter, right, you also need to have someone do favor and then come back and help with plate mechanics, right? Unless you want to do like solo mid and solo right, and then you duo left and you have one person just solo favor and just focus on that, which is like really, really annoying to do with joining allies with this new strat. Instead of like doing a wipe pull, you kind of don't have a choice. And so you're kind of gated to favor. And so because of that, it's really important that the Titan clears left side. So Titan is going to kill these ads, maybe the Ultra spawns on this side, they kill those. So you have about like, 5 seconds to kill this Ultra. You're going to go mid. And then, so what do the other people do while they're getting joining allies? So what happens is you have 2 people stay mid. You have 2 people go to right on eager edge. So they go here, right? So that would be the Stony and Warder rolls. They both go here. They try to kill the mid ad, or the right ads as quickly as possible. Maybe they help a little bit with the Ultra, right? And then the key thing here is that one of these people is going to leave and go to left, right? I mentioned how left is way more annoying to close than right or mid. And so it doesn't make sense that the Titan solos left, right? That's absolutely ridiculous, right? That's almost impossible to do. And so, especially, without dissipating or anything like that. So you would have to have one person help with left side, right? And so the reason why you have 2 people go right side at first and you don't have just someone solo right ad clear is because obviously these people are getting joining allies. And so if only one person were to do right ad clear, it would be hellish for them and they would probably be really slow. And so you have 2 people go right on eager, you have 2 people stay mid, and then you have one person who's obviously basically killed all of the ads by the time everyone spawns in on left, they kill the Ultra, and then they come mid to do favor. Now the problem here is that if the person on right goes to left, and you RNG it, and one of these people that is going to left gets stolen favor, then how is the right guy going to know what's on his conductor? Well, obviously you could say, oh, well, this person could just call it out for them and go left. Well, that is a really big amount of time loss, because as soon as favor is stolen, right, this person needs to be sending right away. On top over here. So it's impossible for them to call and also send because there's a big statue blocking the conductor you can't see from left. So how do we make it so that this player always, the solo right player, always gets chosen for favor? Well, after the ad clear happens, this guy, so Stony's role in our team, goes mid. He actually goes mid into the arena. And being in the arena makes it so that the boss doesn't think that you're on a side. And so he never chooses you. And so he always chooses right, he always chooses left, and then he always chooses one person from mid. Now, I'm going to quickly skim over the mid roll here because it's easily the most easy one in this encounter. The mid players, all they have to do is just 2-man mid. It's super easy. They just have to 2-man mid, and they have to do it fast enough so that their not being on eager is not time loss when they get to box, right? I believe we have left people. The left person, this guy, gets resonance to dunk on box. So they just need to be on time for damage. That's all. And obviously, like, not die and stuff. So yeah, that's the mid roll. Pro tip for you, now that I mention it, about not dying, is when you get joining allies, by the way, in this encounter, the Scions can like dusk field you, like while you're getting joining. So you may spawn into the encounter like completely frozen. So make sure you have the right resists on. I would highly recommend 100 reseal for this encounter, and stuff like that. And just like being aware to like just be in combat the second you get joined, because there's no one here to aggro your ads for you. And as a result, like you may die, like you may spawn in dead because the ads have already killed you. So that can happen. Just be aware of that. But it's just a consequence of how this works, right? Like there's not much you can do about it. So that is that. So how does favor work? So obviously this guy, he like baits mid, right? He makes sure he doesn't get favor, and then he goes up here, he mountaintops and grapples himself up to the plate up here, right? And he gets ready for the send call from the Titan. What does the Titan do? The Titan puts on Ariana's Vow, very important. Ariana's Vow one-shots blights if you ADS and get first glance with it. So the Titan just goes mid, I actually put on a trace rifle and Ariana's Vow because any amount of damage to the boss's head initially will spawn blights. And if the boss is like mega TPing all the time while you're going into him like mid, it's really helpful to have something that can shoot at a high fire rate rather than Ariana's. So I just jump into mid and I just trace rifle his head, and then we'll spawn blights. And then I immediately, the Titan player is responsible for mid and left blights. So no, not mid, but like arena and left blights, right? So they kill both those blights. And then the solo right player, the Titan calls out blights when they successfully, see the circle appear on the boss's head. And then the solo right player will look up, they'll shoot their blight. And then the mid players will look up, they'll shoot their blight. And then the Titan should instantly be able to shoot head again, get favor, and they'll call favor. They'll call favor out loud. And then the left player will instantly send. That's their cue, right? And the thing is, left is slow enough because the Titan obviously has to do favor. These guys, they can send whatever the fuck they want, right? They can send immediately. They can send immediately because you can actually send on plate, not when favor is taken, but when you kill your ultra. And so obviously on right and mid, the ultras will be dead, and they'll be able to send as soon as their ultras are killed, right? So realistically, it should be mid that finishes way before everyone else, and then it should be right because right's solo, and then it should be left. And the reason why left is slow, obviously, is because you don't send as soon as you kill your ultra, you send as soon as your Titan is ready, and your Titan is only ready when favor is done, and favor is usually done after the ultras then. So hopefully that makes sense. So Titan heads over here. Now, the important thing about this encounter while you're practicing, to probably save you guys some time, is you guys got to figure out where the resonance spawns on each side, okay? So, for example, on this side, right, on whatever, left side, right, circles always spawn on the far side, and triangles always spawn on this side. And then you have to get used to spawn. So, like, circle might spawn up here, triangle might spawn all the way up here. So you have to be ready. You have to be ready. It'll take some practice. You'll figure it out, I'm sure. But you have to be ready. So this guy up here, he's getting resonance. The guy up on the plate, he's getting resonance to dunk in mid, and he's on eager, so he's going to be in mid super fast to dunk on that box. Titan, on the other hand, is just stacking up, trying not to die to like the knight and all the shit that's hitting him, including the boss. And then you're just building up your stacks. And the Titan, as soon as box is called, so the box spawns, the Titan goes right over here by the edge of the arena, shoots a navigator point up, switches to tractor, and does damage. Okay. In terms of your damage, you're just on Worm God grapple melees with 1-2 punch. I think everyone kind of knows that by now. And you're bringing Banner of War for your teammates so they can do a little bit more sword damage, 10% more sword damage. Okay. Right side player, solo, same thing. Really, really important that you learn where the symbols spawn. Triangle always spawns on this side. Circle always spawns on this side. Middle, not as important because you can kind of just look, but I'm sure you'll learn over time. I've never done mid personally, so I don't know where triangle and circle spawns, but I'm sure you guys know if you've done mid once or twice. So yeah, that's basically it. We talked about gates, and hopefully you guys see why this strat is done the way it is. I mean, I've explained basically every contingency and like why it's done the way it is, but yeah, that's basically it. If you guys do everything properly, all three conductors should be closed by like an 0.5x, right? So like if you're ideal, like 50, but like it could be 55, something like that, right? And then your kill should be between 20 to 25 seconds from starting damage to like hitting the final stand bar, and then your final stand should be like 2 or 3 seconds, right? Maybe 4 seconds, right? Yeah. And then after that, everyone just leaves and gets into fire team and should be able to instant rejoin if your skipper is not like super slow. Okay. That's it for second encounter. What a mouthful, what a mouthful, what a mouthful. I hope you guys all understand that. In terms of damage, right? You have your eager players obviously on eager and still hunt. The other two players are on solar swords. One of them is on attrition orbs, right? And the other one is on just a regular damage sword. And you can use a bunch of swords for this. There's a list posted in panel that you can follow. There's It Stared Back, the Levy sword. There is, sorry, my brain is like not working right. There's Negative Space, which you can get from Banshee from time to time for Relentless Whirlwind. There's Abide the Return from the Dreaming City, which you can farm from Blind Well. You can use Summon Bonum if you don't care about surge matching. There's a bunch of stuff you can use, right? So just there's a bunch of stuff. Try it out, see what works for you. But I would probably recommend surge matching your still hunt. In terms of like ergo and stuff like that, we'll probably look into that and see if that's worth using, because nowadays, because you're getting pulled to second encounter, everyone has transcendence. So you could use that and use ergo, but I'm not gonna say anything if it's not confirmed. So yeah, that's it for second encounter. I hope that makes sense. A bit shorter of an explanation than third encounter, or than first encounter, because first encounter is a lot more complex with its routing. Let's move on to third encounter. So your skipper is obviously doing 2-3. If you need a route for 2-3, there's a sub 2 that's been posted by Seiyun in Speedrun panel. So again, all the videos for like routes and stuff like that, I'm not going to show them on screen here. They're just in panel if you need them. Okay. So third encounter. Third encounter is actually like really straightforward. Like really straightforward. Okay. Really straightforward. So the way third encounter works is like this. Let's just pretend this is a room, right? So there's a plate, there's a conductor, there's a plate, there's a conductor, there's a plate, there's a conductor. Okay, super fucking easy, Okay, and so you have 3 teams of 2, right? You have, team A, team B, team C. In every single room, you have team A get left tormentor, team B get mid tormentor, team C get right tormentor. And you have one person either pop a Nighthawk or a still hunt Nighthawk, right? And then you have the other person be on Izzy, right? And so one guy, the tormentor spawns in, shoulder is here. One guy, Izzy's the shoulder, and the second the tormentor drops down, the other guy just radiant bodies him, radiant crits him, whatever, with Celestial Nighthawk or with still hunt. So either one, and the tormentors instantly die. Like the second you enter the room, boom, tormentor spawn, Izzy, boom, all three are dead, right? One guy makes the call out, STC, whatever it is, right? One guy makes the call out. And then as soon as you want to ideally send all three pulses at the same time. So if one tormentor is a little late, you want to try and delay the plates until that tormentor is dead. Now, ideally, obviously, all three tormentors die at the same time. But what I like to do is you have one of your teammates call send as soon as you see the turret spawn, because the turrets will only spawn once all three tormentors are dead. So as soon as you see the turret spawn, one guy calls, send, everyone gets on, right? Now, the thing about this third encounter is that it can soft lock if you close multiple conductors at the exact same time. Now, sometimes it doesn't happen even if you close them at the exact same time, but just know that this is a thing that can happen, right? And so as a result, what some teams are doing, not all teams are doing this, but what some teams are doing is on the bounce, right? So obviously, normally when you step on a plate and, the conductor guy receives, you want to be stepping on as soon as the pulse arrives in your plate, right? As soon as possible. Now, what we do is on the bounce, when the pulse comes back to your plate, you can have people delay by different amounts in order to make sure that you never close all three at the exact same time. So for example, right guy would get on as late as possible, maybe mid guy would get on as soon as the circle appears on the plate, and then left guy would ego it and go as quickly as possible as soon as they see the pulse arrive in the plate without waiting for the circle animation whatsoever. And that'll ensure that as long as your conductor people are on their feet and moving quickly, things will close basically right away, right? Or not, they'll close at different times is what I meant to say. I'm not thinking right now. Okay, so that's basically the main strat for third encounter. All you need to do is, step on, right? It goes back, and then it goes back, and then it should be closed by then, right? And so all these people are doing is, this is literally just like, if your LFG is efficient, they'll do this too. Like, this is just doing the encounter fast, basically, right? So these three people, right? All they're doing is they're looking for the symbol that spawns near them, right? So for example, on right side, I believe like triangle always spawns near right? So this guy will always be able to pick up a triangle. And so whatever the call is, maybe it's like TSC or something, right? This guy will just pick up a triangle and like immediately go there and then just close it right away. So that's what the callout's for. I mean, this encounter is literally just done normally. It's just done normally. You're obviously not doing the dissipate strat that LFGs do. You're just like listening for the call, looking for it in chat, and then pick up the symbol near you and go to one of the other two guys, right? Because there's always a symbol that spawns near you. In third room, it's a little bit different because like all three symbols spawn like everywhere. So you can figure that out kind of however you want. But just be aware that obviously not all the symbols are always going to spawn every single time. They spawn in different orders. It's kind of random in that way, but obviously symbols will always spawn in the same locations. Okay, so that's basically it for how third encounter like mechanics are done. In terms of like resonance, you just have these people like pick up some resonance and dunk it, right? It's fine if multiple people dunk resonance. It doesn't cause time loss. You just have people dunk resonance. And the champ at the end, I mean, you just kind of team shot it. I don't know. Third encounter is like super straightforward. It's super straightforward. The only thing that can really go wrong in third encounter is like if someone like misses an Izzy or something, that can be a lot of time loss. But if everyone's just kind of moving quickly, going with the flow, things are going well, it should be chill. Just make sure one of these guys is ready to dunk on box immediately. And yeah, that's basically it. I think some teams run a tether in third room, I should say, to tether all three tormentors at the same time. So make sure they're debuffed, take more damage. But besides that, there's nothing special in this room, to be honest. In this encounter. Okay, so that's third encounter. Sorry, my brain is like mega fried right now. Okay, so finally, let's talk about third room. So there's a skip that's been found. It's called 3-4, right? And the way that it works is basically at the end of third room, there's a door, right? There's a door. The box is like here, right? You have some like pillars, right? And there's like a set of routes here, right? And you can see the route that Seiyun has posted. It involves like kind of sorting through here with Eager and grappling off to this side and like going here, and then making your way to fourth encounter load zone and dying. And basically there's a way to leave third encounter early and go to fourth encounter and start fourth encounter early. Now the problem with this is that if you start fourth encounter without your team being there, it will attempt to suck them in, and anybody that gets sucked in, I believe, will have an invisible statue that cannot be interacted with correctly. And so that will basically soft lock the encounter. You don't want that. You don't want that at all. And so what the strat is right now is in the future, what will happen in this transition is 5 people will do this transition and 1 person will leave and rejoin and spawn in dead. Okay. And that's a lot of time save because literally the second third encounter ends, You have one guy solo the final unstop, they leave the fire team, the encounter ends, and then instantly everyone starts fourth encounter. There's no risk of a soft lock because everybody's already there. Now, the thing about this transition is that or this skip, I should say, is that it's quite annoying. It's very easy to fuck it up. Now, Seiyun's route that, she made recently with a grapple and stuff is pretty consistent, I would say, but 5 people doing it in a tourney setting is like, especially when this is like, I don't know, 2/3 into the run, is kind of rough, right? You kind of don't want to take that risk. You're free to. I'm not going to stop you, but just know that it's like 10 seconds of time save, and it's quite risky to do. And it's quite annoying to do with, cramming 5 people in that little hole under the root. So what you probably will do, and what I think Seiyun's team and my team are going to do, is just have a couple people learn it, have a couple people go for it, and if one person makes it, great. If 2 people make it, great. Like, it doesn't really matter how many people make it, as long as one person makes it. Because the other strat that you can do with this is you have one person make it, and I'm sure you guys know that once you guys go through this door, Verity load is like somewhere here, and then the actual encounter is like down here, right? Or it's like a wrap around, you know what I mean, right? So you can save half the transition by having everyone, by having this person start the encounter as soon as everyone hits Verity load, and then everyone dies in Verity load with like X Dearest, right? So they die in Verity load, and as soon as that's done, right, they're able to death warp into the next encounter, and they don't have invisible statues. Okay, so that's the main thing with this segment. You can save some time with this strategy with this 3-4 skip, not all of the time, because obviously you have to wait for this part. But yeah, pretty helpful, pretty cool. And then obviously the remaining people who are not going on skip can just help kill the unstop. All right, so that's it for 3-4 skip. I hope that is clear. If you want to see a clip of 3-4 skip, it is in panel as usual. Okay, so that is it for 3-4. Let's talk about Verity. Oh boy, Verity. So Verity is obviously the bane of LFG's existence, but in speedrunning, it's actually very simple. If you have a static team with, static stuff, static drip, everything, it's pretty straightforward, right? And so yeah, we're gonna go over this right now and talk about Verity. So Verity has a new strategy that was introduced that I will talk about towards the end of the segment, but first let me talk about how it's done in speedrunning in general, okay? So what is the encounter gates of Verity? What is encounter gates of Verity? So you need to, well, it's kind of 2 gates at the start, right? So at the start, people get TP'd in, and so you have 2 gates. You have dissection, and then you have, inside trades. Let's just call them let's call them sends. So S-E-N, okay? So these are 2 gates at the start of the encounter. And the theory right now, I believe, is that both of these combined, if you do, 4, 5, 6 trades combined, between inside and outside, you'll get witness notices you're offering, right? So then these both lead into witness. So I'll just say 3 ghosts, right? 3 ghosts. In the 3 ghost section, I'm sure you guys know what that is. And then after that, you have dissection should be done by then, right? Dissection should be done by then. And then after the 3 ghost section is done, inside people have to kill like their knights and / ogres, right? So ogre / knight, and then they pick up their shapes, and then they leave, and then outside, I'm not actually sure how much the middle ads even like matter. It seems like it's time gated to me. I've asked people to test this, but I don't think anybody has come up with conclusive results. If one of you guys wants to test this, go for it. I don't know if the outside segment is like time locked to a certain amount, but it always seems like the second witness notices your efforts is kind of around the same time. But anyways, so then after that, you get 5 ghost section. And then the cycle repeats, right? So if you look at this encounter, the gates are actually really simple. They're actually really simple. The mechanics are obviously like a little bit like complex, I guess, but in terms of speedrunning, if you've done them a bunch of times, it's not that bad. So this encounter will need some practice for players to like get the mechanics through their head, but it's not too bad. So inside, what do you do for inside? So the speedrun strategy, I'm sure like people have heard of this already by now, but yes, if you haven't heard of it, there is a way to make sure that you get out in one single set of trades, right? So 1 set of knights, 2 trades, 1 send to, different statues, the same statue, and you can get out and complete your trades before witness, right? And so the goal is like this. There's 3, okay, I'm explaining this really poorly, sorry. I did not prep for this at all. Someone just asked me to make this video, and whatever. Anyways, let's get back on topic. So we have A, B, and C. So when you get sucked inside, right, there's 3 possibilities of what you should do, right? Number 1 is you have a double, right? And what by double, I mean you have 2 of the same shape on your wall, right? Number 2 is that you have a single, but one of your teammates has a double, okay? And number 3 is that you have a single and all of your teammates have singles. And what I mean is obviously like, one of them is your shape and one of them is someone else's shape, right? So let's say your triangle. Okay, so just ignoring your teammates besides getting this information from them, right? What should you do? If you have a double, you just give 1, 2 each. 1, 2, or you know what? Let's actually just draw this so it's more intuitive, right? So let's say you're a triangle. Let's say you're a triangle. You give one of your triangles to square, and you give one of your triangles to circle. Okay, super easy. If you have double, 1 to each, obviously it doesn't matter who you give what triangle. It's not like they're different flavored triangles, right? Okay, if you have a single and one of your teammates has a double, right? It's obviously not possible for 2 of your teammates to have a double, because then you'd have what, like try, square, square, and then like circle, square. Like you're not gonna have like 3 squares, right? Doesn't make sense. So if one of your teammates has a double and you have a single, what do? Well, let's say you have triangle, you have square, right? This is really easy. You give your symbol, so let's say your triangle, you give it to the other shape on your wall. So you give triangle to square, and you give square to circle. You do the remaining trade that's possible. You still give 1 to each, right? Now, you might say, Aegis, what if I'm going really, really fast and I kill my first knight and I want to pick it up right away and it's a square? What do I do then? Really easy. You just make sure you don't give square to square. You give it to the other possible shape. That's it. That's all you need to do. So those are the 2 lines of thinking you should be having when you go in. Once you do this a lot, it'll be second nature. But if you have your shape, give it to the other shape on the wall. If you have the other shape, just make sure you don't end up giving it to the person that's holding that shape. Giving square to square would be obviously very bad. So triangle, give that to square. Square, give that to circle. So still 1 to each. These are both 1 to each, right? 1, 2 each, right? Now, the final possibility is you have a single and all 3 people on your team have singles. In this case, you give both of your shapes, triangle and square, and you give them to the missing shape that's not on your wall. So you give them to the person that ends up needing them. So you just give both of those to circle. So notice this is not 1 to each. This is 2 to 1 person. I'm not going to explain why this in particular needs to be 2 to 1 person, because it's not really needed, right? I guess you just need to know the strategy. But just know that, like, in this event, if you try to use this strategy, you would end up having to do more trades, basically. Okay? So that is the inside strat. Inside. Now, if you're fast enough inside, you should be able to do both of your trades and kill your ogre and maybe kill an additional knight before you leave, right? Now, the big thing with this strat is that make sure that when the witness notices your effort, you want to make an effort to be next to the glass as early as possible. And the reason for that is this. It's really helpful for your outside teammates if they can pre-stand in a certain position to know where your ghost is going to be without having to do any sort of communication. So I believe Seiyun's team, Seiyun was trying to improve their Verity, and one of the things that she noticed was that they were having issues with like picking up ghosts on time, and like people would have to call out and there was confusion, and people, 2 ghosts were in the same position, and it was a mess, right? So what my team was doing, I think starting from like our second practice session, is I was like, yo, what if all of us just died next to the glass relative to our statue? So if your left statue, die on the left side of the glass. And that way you're as close as possible to your statues outside, right? In the ghost area. And that way there's no communication that's needed, right? If you're grabbing left statue, that's obviously going to be, the guy on the left, right? So what you do is, like, if you're left statue, you just die here. If you're mid, you just die like right next to the funnel, like here, I guess. And then if you're right, you die here. Right, super easy. And unless you're like mega slow on your trades, you should be able to like do this like 100%, right? It was super easy, right? Obviously prioritize doing your trades first if you're like not gonna make it to the wall, but hopefully most of your teammates will be able to make it to the wall. Okay, what about outside? Outside. Now, I've seen plenty of people try to like wrap their heads around like dissection using like calculators and shit. You can do that, but like there's a really easy way to do outside dissection that's like super brain dead, right? And this works out really well in speedrunning, where you want to like minimize having to communicate and do like multiple jobs at the same time. Everyone is like an independent machine using this strategy, so it's super easy. Okay, I'm gonna assume that you know how dissection works, right? And so left, middle, and right knights, what do they drop? So I haven't done this encounter in a while, like 2 weeks, but I believe left knight drops a circle, mid knight drops a triangle, and right knight drops a square, right? And so outside, when your teammates get sucked in, assign 1 person to each knight, right? You have some time. So, 1 person gets left, 1 person gets mid, 1 person gets right. Super easy, right? And so what do you actually do? So the super brain dead, mega easy strat is you look at the chat callout. So the chat callout might be like CST, right? Which, is that a possible? Yeah, that's a possible one here, right? So let's say the chat callout is CST. What do? If you pick up a circle, you dunk on the callout that was made in chat. So the reason why this is different from inside is because inside, if you were to dunk circle on circle, you're giving circle to circle, which is really bad, right? Outside, instead of giving, it's the opposite. You're taking, you're dissecting, right? So if you interact with circle on the circle callout, you are taking it away from that statue and sending it somewhere else. So that's a good thing, right? And so the way this strategy works is you literally just mimic what is the callout in chat. So triangle needs to be dunked on right statue, square needs to be dunked on middle statue, circle needs to be dunked on left statue, right? Now the only exception to this, the only caveat to this super, super simple line of thinking is if you ever have any shapes that are outside that are three-dimensional shapes with two of the same component. So I'm talking cubes, I'm talking spheres, right? I'm talking triangular pyramids, right? So triangle, triangle. If you have any of these three shapes, you want to prioritize trading with that shape first. That's really, really important. You want to prioritize trading with that shape first. Now, you might be asking, Aegis, what if you have a cube, a sphere, and a triangular pyramid? Then you don't need to do that. You can just do this. You can just do the brain dead strat of interacting with the callout repeated times. And by the time 6 knights are killed, you'll be done. You'll be done dissecting. Okay. So this encounter is super straightforward, not really gated to dissect unless your dissect is like really, really slow. So dissect is like super simple. As long as you're done like kind of on time, you should be fine. Okay. There is one strategy where dissect is important, but we're not going to talk about that yet. We're going to talk about that later. Okay. So just know this is a super, super brain dead strat. All you have to do is outside the initial starting shapes. If you have one 3D shape, like let's say, you know, this shape is like a triangular pyramid, and then this one's like, I don't know, like a cylinder, and like this one's also a cylinder, right? Then you would just say like prio mid. So let mid interact first. Make sure mid interacts first, because let's say, you know, mid doesn't interact first and left and right interact first, then you're going to have to end up doing 2 extra trades on this guy, right? Which is really bad. So that's basically it for outside dissection. Yeah, this works with any RNG, no matter what, right? Most RNG, you can just do brain dead strat. If you see a single cube, sphere, or triangle pyramid, let that guy trade first. That is literally it. That's literally it. After that, just insta-kill the unstops and then get 3 more knights to spawn. Dissection's done. Super, super easy. Very, very easy. Okay. In terms of loadout for this encounter, I think, have I mentioned loadout for every other encounter? Yeah, I have. Okay. So in terms of loadout for this encounter, I would recommend using conditional, a rocket sidearm, and a sword. And obviously be on Aeons as well, right? You want to be Aeoning champs. And the reason for that is because the current strat to get the 5th encounter, you don't get a flag. You don't get a flag. And so because you don't get a flag, you probably want to, you know, like make heavy ammo so people have rockets for final encounter. Okay. So that's basically it for inside and outside. I hope that was helpful to you guys. For the 3 ghost section, it's, you know, pretty straightforward, right? You just pick up the ghosts, you do it like the LFG way, just call out, right? For the 5 ghost section, there is a special strat called, well, it's not called anything. It's just the 5 ghost strat, right? So what you do for the 5 ghost section is, let me show it to you like this, right? So there's 6 statues, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And so the way this game works, the way this encounter works, I should say, is that for the 5 ghost section, the game looks for one player in the fire team and it selects them and it turns everyone else to stone. It turns everyone else to stone. Now, it doesn't matter if you have 5 people in your fire team, if you have 4 people in your fire team, if you have 3 people in your fire team, it doesn't matter how many people you have in your fire team during this section. It will not wipe you, right? You can literally have 3 people in your fire team and the game will just turn these 2 people to stone and this person will be alive, right? Now, you can use that to your advantage because as long as people are not dying left and right in Verity, you can use these deaths and use reses to your advantage. And so what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is this. When the witness notices your efforts, right? Or before the witness notices your efforts, you can have 3 people die either by jumping in the hole or by rocket sidearming the ground. And so the game thinks there's only 3 people in your fire team. And so as a result, it will turn, let's say it turns 2 and 3 to stone. And I'm sure if you've done Verity before, you know that you are never going to be able to see yourself on a podium. And so they can just go to the podium that's empty. And the podium that's empty will always be them. So 2 would be like, oh, I can see my teammate on this podium, so I'll just go over here and make sure my ghost is in front of my podium. And then this teammate 3, they'll be like, oh, I can see teammate 2 on the 2 podium, so I know me, I'm going to be over here. Process of elimination, 1 and 2. I go to 3. And so you'll have 2 ghosts that are literally right in front of where they need to be dunked. And then what's going to happen at the same time is player 1 is going to res a different player, right? Or technically all 3 of these players can res all 3 of these players at the same time, right? As soon as the witness notices your efforts, it's going to start choosing people, and then these people can be res, they're guaranteed to not get sucked in, right? And so then you can just have 3 people ready to like dunk ghosts right away. Obviously you only need 2 to instant dunk, but just to, you know, make things a bit easier, I suppose, in case something goes wrong. So Again, you literally just dunk the ghost in front of the statue that it's on, right? So there's no confusion, just instantly 2 dunks and the cycle's over. Okay. The only thing different about this is obviously on final round. So you have 3 people die in the first round, you have a different people die in the second round. On final round, what do? On final round, there's actually a really cool strat you can do, and it's called hold time. It's called hold time, yeah. And so the way the strat works is, as soon as the witness notices your efforts, you have all 6 people just gather around the hole, all right? And you're gonna have people need to just pull up a sword, right, third person, and just look at their feet. Look at their feet. If you're turning to stone, you go hold time. You jump in the hole. That's it, right? You jump in the hole, and the remaining person will be the only person in the fire team, and the game will realize, wait, there's no one to turn to stone. This guy's the only one left in the encounter. I guess the objective is done, and it'll just insta-complete the encounter. So that's pretty cool. You can try this in an LFG if you want. Obviously, this is like a wiping strat. This will wipe you at the end of third round on Verity if you fuck this up. So don't fuck it up, I guess. Just make sure you don't jump in if you're not turning to stone. Because if the wrong person jumps in and the last person's turning the stone, it's just a wipe. So yeah, just be careful. But yeah, this is the whole time strat. Third round, insta complete, pretty cool. Now, finally, I mentioned one last thing. Now, there's another strategy that's recently been developed for the first round of Verity, only, okay? And so you might be able to figure out how to do this on the second round of Verity, but the first round of Verity, you can do a specific strat. And it's basically, it skips the 3 ghost section for first round. So remember how I said that there's gates, right? So there's trades, so there's like, sending, dissecting. Both of these lead to 3 ghosts, and then 3 ghosts, and then, K/O, and then you're out, right? What if you were to cut this out entirely? Well, that's a lot of time save, right? Because 3 ghosts is pretty slow. You got to wait for the animation. You got to wait for people to pick up the ghosts. You got to wait for communication. You got to wait for all 3 ghosts to be dunked. You got to wait to get sucked in, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of stuff. You can save some time. You can save, maybe 10 seconds off of this. So how do you save that time? Well, so there's a team, I believe it's Sushi's team, I think, that figured this out. I'm not sure. I give credit to them, right? People were trying to figure out a way to bypass the 3 ghost section, because obviously it's pretty slow, right? It's pretty slow. People notice that, right? Long death animation, whatever. You got to pick up ghosts, whatever. So people have been spending a long time trying to figure it out. And so there was strats where like you would leave the fire team while you're inside, and that would like stop the witness from noticing your efforts, and you would just be able to dissect and get out early. People have had instances in LFGs where like people are really, really slow, and for some reason one person's like able to get out before everyone else, even before witness notices your efforts. So there's been a lot of like development lore behind this, but the current strat, right, that's been kind of developed, I'm not sure if it's like RNG, because my team hasn't done 4th encounter in quite a while. We're doing 2nd encounter right now. Again, we're doing practice. But the strat is like this, okay? So the inside people, what they do is they do 1 trade each, right? So I'm sure, like I drew the inside thing. Hopefully I don't have to draw it again. But the inside people, they do 1 trade each, and then they pick up their second shape and they don't do anything with it. They wait. They wait. And the outside people, they finish dissection first. And as soon as dissection is finished, around that time, you'll start getting witness notices you're offering, whatever. As soon as dissection is finished, the inside people will do their second trade at the same time. They'll do their second trade, and then they'll immediately jump into the hole off the map. So what will this do? What this does is, if it works properly, it skips over the 3 ghost section because it TPs the 3 people outside inside. But because the right shapes have already been traded to the inside people, and because dissection has already been done outside, the keys are unlocked. And so the witness, for some reason, doesn't wipe you, even though no one is outside. The witness doesn't wipe you. I don't know why. Okay. And so the 3 people inside, all they have to do is kill their ogres, kill their knights, pick up their shapes, and get out. That's it. That's all they have to do. And this strat ties in beautifully to the 5 ghost strat, because 3 people are already dead. They're already dead. And so it works out pretty well. Now, obviously, the reason why you can't do this on second is that you can't guarantee the 3 people that are going to get sucked in. And so you might not have a res for the rest of the fucking encounter. And so that can be really bad. Actually, I just realized you could 5-man the rest of the encounter, couldn't you? Right? Because if LFG is to be believed, I'm not 100% sure if this is true, by the way. Some of you should definitely go check this out, because my team is not going to be on 4th encounter for a bit. But LFGs have said that if you put 3 people at the front of the room like this, when the witness is randomizing statues and picking who to go in, 2 of those 3 people are guaranteed to go inside. And so because of that, right, you could theoretically just RNG the 3rd person to go in. And even if you had only 2 of the correct people go in, they could die, and then you would 5-man 3rd round. And 5-manning 3rd round, I guess it's like a bit of time loss, but it's not like an insane amount of time loss, right? You obviously, you can just do the jump off strat at the end. I don't know. I don't know if that'd be worth it, because I feel like at the start of, for the 3 ghost section on third round, you'd only have 2 people to pick up 3 ghosts, right? So I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know. But yeah, anyways, that's what you do on first round. The second and third round, you just do like the way I already described. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so that is it for fourth encounter. Verity, again, like in speedrunning, not super complicated, right? Like if you just boil it down to the really basic strats, you like the flowchart diagram for inside, for outside, you just dunk on the chat call and then prio the double shapes. You're set. You're set. It's all about just like muscle memory, just getting it down. That's it. All right. So and making finishers and stuff. Okay. So 4-5. So the transition to witness. So there's like 2 ways you could do this, right? That I've like theorized, or not theorized. Well, one way people are already doing it, and the other way is like something people aren't really doing. So the first way is that you have one person enter the load zone early, right? So you have one person go up the elevator before everyone else, and they rocket grapple to the witness, right? And they hit the checkpoint. That is an auto-res checkpoint. So a lot of encounters in Destiny, when you first arrive at them, they auto-res people, right? A really famous example of this would be like Garden Second encounter, right? When you first enter that area next to the one relay, it reses everybody in the fire team wherever they are, right? It auto-reses them. Now, the same thing happens when you approach the witness area. And so as a result, if you're trying to have your fire team members death warp, you have to let this auto-res happen first and then let them die so that they don't get auto-resed, and then the encounter starts and then they get joining, right? So as a result, you can't really just grapple straight through the witness and instantly start the encounter, because then everyone's going to get joining. They have to wait through 11 seconds. That's a lot of time loss, right? So the ways you could do this, right, are a couple ways. You could just have 3 people do transition and have everyone else get joining, and they just do breaks while everyone else gets joining. That's a possibility, right? That's doable. You could have 6 people do transition. That's also an option. Or you can have 1 person do transition. They hit the checkpoint. Everyone else dies, and then they death warp. And there's some ways that are being experimented with right now to like get everyone flag. But let's just assume flag doesn't work out. You have the ammo. You have transcendence. You have your Goldie from fourth encounter. And yeah. Okay, so witness is actually really simple. Witness is you have 3 people get the 3 different shapes. You break them, and they call out. And in my team, this is what we do. We call out our teammates' names. Right? So for example, if Warda sits in the rectangle arms beam and he gets rectangle resonance, he gets hexahedron resonance, and he breaks the crit or he breaks the wristband or whatever, and he sees green, right? And let's say I'm triangle, so I'm green, right? He's going to say Aegis, right? And then that means I know that I should go to the rectangle arm, to Warda's arm, and go inside of the arm and break it and get glyph breaker, right? And so the strat that's being used in speedrunning is you triple break. So you have 2 people, the first 2 people to get glyph breaker, they use a rocket, a mountaintop, and a sniper shot to get a triple break off and break 3 crits each with 1 glyph breaker, right? Now this is the timing on this can be like a little tight. You can fuck it up. So obviously the third person who you have in kind of reserve, they can also try to get a buff in case things like go wrong and one person hits a double, the other person hits a triple. But for the most part, it should be fairly consistent in order to have people hit triple breaks, especially depending on connection circumstances. So that is that. You can also, some teams are doing like 3 double breaks instead. That's also an option that you can use. But for the most part, I think our team is doing like 2 triple breaks. Some teams are doing like, a different strategy as well, but that's kind of basically just, abuse the fact that you can break multiple crits with 1 instance of glyph breaker. That's what I should say. Okay. As for damage, right? I mean, the encounter is like really easy, right? Like 5th encounter is I said it's the easiest for a reason, right? It's just do your triple breaks, do your double breaks, whatever. Go to, make sure the ads don't nuke your teammates, right? Try not to troll and make the triangle spawn at the back of the map by going too deep. And then just go to damage. Just go to damage, right? You go to damage and you just do damage. That's it, right? You do damage. You're on 6 hunters. You got Still Hunt. You got Nighthawks. You got, Apex Predator. You got, all sorts of things, right? Make sure you're stacking like Facet of Courage. Someone throws a Dusk Field on the boss early. Someone throws a Smoke Bomb. You have weakened grenades, whatever it is. And yeah, you just send him to final, beat his ass. That's it. Trying to think if there's like anything else. Not really, right? Obviously, you need your ammo from 4th encounter, but I already talked about that. So yeah, that's it. In terms of target times for this raid, I'm not like super aware of every single encounter, but I will say this. So you should start first encounter, I will say, by like 110, I think. So that should be your entrance segment, right? You should get the door by like 1 minute, and then the getting to first encounter, like starting it should be like around 10 seconds, I think, right? So like 110. First encounter itself probably has the most variance out of any encounter in this raid. I would say most variance based on skill, right? It's like 4th encounter. If you fuck up, obviously there'll be huge variance, right? But it's pretty hard to fuck up 4th encounter if you've practiced, right? So first encounter can be anywhere from a 3-3x all the way to a 4-0x, right? So there's huge variance in first encounter. Second encounter should be a 1-3x to a 1-4x. Okay. Your rejoin segment is like whatever, right? That's a rejoin segment. Your third encounter should be a sub 3. As far as I know, it should be a sub 3. Okay. And then these are all like target times. They're really good times, right? Like if you get like a 3-0x or something, it's not like the end of the world or anything, but this is like what you should be going for, like your goal times. Fourth encounter, I believe you can get down to like a mid 4. But again, my team hasn't touched fourth encounter in a while. I know Satan's team is practicing it right now, but again, I'm not like 100% sure on this. So a mid 4, and then a fifth encounter. So witness. I haven't really timed many witnesses, but I think it's like a mid 1. I think it's a mid 1. I think it's a little bit faster than second encounter, right? So all in all, this raid can, with some of the changes to like 3-4 and stuff like that, can get down to an 18, right? That is possible. Now, will people get an 18 in the tourney? I don't fucking think so. Not with some crazy developments, not with some crazy new tech, new strats, whatever. I think most likely before the tourney, a sub 20 will probably be achieved. I think, probably, maybe, I don't know. Depends on how fast the teams progress that are currently running. But that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know after first encounter, I didn't have like any maps or anything, so it probably wasn't like super visually stimulating. I also don't have examples of anything past first like clipped because we haven't like really hammered home those encounters yet. So yeah, but Excluded wanted me to make this video early, so you know, newer teams have a shot at kind of learning the strats. I hope I've explained this adequately. You know, feel free to leave a comment if you are curious as to what some of the things that I maybe didn't mention are involved. Okay, yeah, that's it. Bye bye.